Hello, and welcome to my introduction to RimWorld video. I'm decided to make this video because I have a few friends who are interested in learning about RimWorld but really don't know what it's about. And I have a few friends who know about RimWorld but are very intimidated by it because there can be a lot to it. So I thought I'd give a rundown of what RimWorld is and what steps you would take in order to start a new colony. I'll also make subsequent videos that we will go through that same colony and talk about first priorities when setting up a colony and how to do a lot of the essential things and aspects of the game. But for now, I thought I'd just introduce you to the game RimWorld. So yeah, this is RimWorld. It is a game that is available on Steam. What I love about this game is that it almost defies a category of what type of game it is. A lot of people can play it as a base builder game, a resource management game, a survival action game. There's so many different ways you can play it and how you set it up and what you want to focus on. You could choose to make it a social experiment simulator if you wanted to. It's really fun, but it builds itself as a story generator because it will give you basically you play as a colony on a planet. There's different scenarios that you can start off with, but the whole game basically you get events and you have to kind of respond to those events and try to survive while you're struggling on this kind of very unforgiving landscape. I am currently running RimWorld with the royalty DLC. It is not required to have this DLC in order to do the things I will be doing in this video and in subsequent videos, but I do highly recommend getting the royalty DLC because it adds a lot of quests, it adds a whole new faction, the Empire, and it adds basically the sci-fi magic in this game, which is psionics. And I think it adds a lot of fun stuff to it. It took me a while before I finally bought it, but I did, and I was really, really happy with it. But yeah, let's jump right in. So if you wanted to start a new colony in RimWorld, all you have to do is launch it and go to New Colony. All right, and this is where you're going to choose your scenario. The default scenario is crash landed. That was the original concept for this game. Basically, you play as three crash-landed survivors on a RimWorld. You come from a spacefaring people, so you have technology. You know off the bat like electronic systems and have some guns that you'll crash down. Have a bit of technology with you. Another common scenario is Lost Tribe. This is where you play as a native peoples to the planet. You start off with 5 people, but your technology is more primitive, and it's harder to even get new technology because your research takes twice as long in order to get the new technology. So you start off with more people, but it is kind of harder to progress in the tech tree in this. Rich Explorer is exactly what it sounds like. You start off with 1 person with a lot of materials, a lot of resources, and a lot of technology already researched, but you are 1 person, so it's a lot slower in the beginning to get your colony up and running. And then there is Naked Brutality, which is you start off as 1 person, naked, alone, and without any resources whatsoever. So that one is fairly difficult to start and get a colony up and running. It is slow again, but then you'll have all the disadvantages of not really having any resources to begin with. You can then also open the scenario editor and you can create random scenarios or customize a scenario as much as you want. And that's where the real fun of this game comes. You can make all sorts of starting scenarios. which are really, really fun. As you can see, I have a few saved here where I just really don't like the toxic fallout event that can happen because I just find it annoying to deal with. So sometimes I will start a scenario that just never will have toxic fallout, which I like. Anyway, for the purposes of this video, we're going to go with the default classic scenario, crash landed. I'm going to hit next. Okay, so in this panel, you're going to actually choose your storyteller and your difficulty. Now, I will say anything that you choose here can be changed at any time in the options menu. So if you want to change your storyteller or the difficulty in which you're playing, you can do that at any time. So it's not a big deal what you choose here to begin with. The storytellers are kind of the architects for the pacing and kind of flow of the game. Cassandra Classic really focuses on the story elements, so she will really give events in kind of an ebb and flow sort of way. She'll hit you with a raid, but then give you time to recover from that raid before other events happen. She'll help you out in the beginning to try to get your colony up and running, and then hit you with some hardships to try to challenge your new colony. Phoebe Chillax is just like she sounds like. She will give a lot. Her pacing is really slow and really laid back. So there will be a lot of space in between events. She'll still hit you with raids, and they'll be just as difficult as any other storyteller. But after that raid, you'll have a lot more time to recuperate your resources or build back up if you took any damage or whatever. So this is much more for people who want to kind of make their settlement, make their colony, and not really worry about too many external events. And then my favorite is Randy Random. He's exactly what he sounds like. He kind of just does random events. It really doesn't make sense in terms of a story element or the pacing. He'll hit you with a raid, and then he'll hit you with another raid immediately after, and hit you with a third raid while both of those raids are going on. But then he'll also say, 23 Yorkshire Terriers join your colony. It's kind of crazy how random things can happen, and I, for my part, really like this because it lends itself to a lot of fun, and I'm all about maximizing the fun. Then you have your difficulty settings. So let's just do losing is fun because, again, I'm all about the fun. And then the one thing you can't change is you have to choose whether you want to reload anytime, so you can kind of save at any point that you want to, or commitment mode, which is kind of like the hardcore mode. You can only save as you're quitting, so anything that you've done during that playthrough is what happens, unless you like force quit or something, but then all of your playing time has been deleted. So I am just doing reload anytime for the purposes of recording. All right, now this is where you're gonna kind of put in your presets for creating the world that you're gonna crash land on. So you have a seed that will use to generate the tiles on the world, so you can choose a randomized seed if you want, or you can type in whatever you want. So I'm going to type in Ziggy the dog, just for fun. The globe coverage is just, you have a sphere, and this is how much of that sphere is covered with playable tiles. The default is 30%. You can do 50% or even 100%. The more percentage that you have, the more tiles that you would have to choose from on your starting location, but it also takes a lot longer to generate the world, and it takes up more computer resources. For the purposes of this, we'll just do 50% so we can really get a sense for all the different types of biomes and tiles that you'll have. And then you can adjust the overall rainfall of the planet, the overall temperature. If you want it to be a cold planet or a really hot planet, you can do that. And then the population. A lot of times I like to up the population just so that there's just more factions and settlements that you could trade with or interact with or raid, and they're closer. If there's more of them, they tend to be more crowded, so there's more of them close by. Anyway, for this, we'll just keep everything normal. And we're going to go to generate. Here you can see my mods that I'm using. I only use quality of life mods, nothing that changes the gameplay, but some that just changes my, user interface and what I see, and so I don't have to go through all the menus and stuff like that to see the information I want. All right, so this is the planet that we have generated. All right, looks pretty cool. So if you notice, all the different colors are different types of biomes. So like at the top, you have the ice sheet, sea ice, and then the ice sheet where it's super cold and nothing lives there. So it's a very hard location to begin on. There's the tundra, which is really cold and has a little bit of more vegetation. So you have some resources there. Boreal Forest is a pretty good starting location for beginners because it is a forest. There's lots of wood, there's lots of animals, but it gets really cold, so it's very seasonal, so everything will die and go away in the winter. So you have long stretches where you are resource deprived. If you are a true beginner, I would recommend starting on a temperate forest biome. The reason for that is there's lots of trees because it's a forest, so there's a lot of wood, which is a good early game resource, and is a good resource that you'll need usually throughout the game. There's always a lot of animals on the temperate forest, and it usually has a really good growing period, sometimes year-round or for the majority of the year, so that you can be growing plants for food throughout the year. There are a lot more biomes like tropical rainforest, desert, there's extreme desert, there's swamps, tropical swamps, temperate swamps, all sorts of things. So there are a lot, but for the purposes of this video, I'm going to find a tile in the temperate forest, and when I come back, I'll explain to you why I chose that tile and what I look for when I'm picking a starting location. Okay, so I chose this tile. It's in the temperate forest. You can see this is where it is, pretty much in the smack dab in the middle of the planet. So the reason I chose this is a few things. One is that the terrain type is large hills. So if you notice, there's there's like flat here, there's small hills, you can have large hills, and then you can also have mountainous. So like over here, it's mountainous. I like large hills because what that means is that there will be these large deposits of rock, and in that rock will also be minerals that are very useful for your colony. But large hills also gives you enough space to also grow and build on. So if you did large or small hills, there's less of those deposits, but it still works really well. And then flat, there will still be deposits, but they are very scarce, and you will not get those natural resources as much on a flat terrain. Mountainous, you'll get a ton of rock deposits, but there will be a lot less space on your tile for growing things in dirt and soil and for building, unless you decide to mine, which is and make your colony inside a mountain, which is its own strategy and comes with its own struggles and problems as well. The other reason I chose this tile is because it has two stone types that I always look for: marble and granite. Marble is a very pretty rock, and it gives you a bonus if you make your buildings and houses and rooms out of marble, because it'll give a bonus to the beauty of the room, and that makes your colonists very happy. And this game is all about making your colonists happy. The other thing it has is granite. Granite is the strongest, hardest stone type. So that's really good for making exterior walls or buildings that you don't want to get destroyed as easily. All the other stone types don't really matter. Slate, I think, is one of the weakest stone types. But I look for marble and granite. All the other stone types are pretty much just good stone to build things with. The other thing that's good about this tile is that it has a year-round growing period, and its average temperature is really average. It doesn't get too hot at all, and it doesn't get too cold. Colonists tend to really like the around 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and so this average is right around there, and it does not get too hot or too cold, so plants won't die in the winter, and you won't get heat stroke in the summer. Of course, there can always be the event of cold snap or heat wave, which will make things hot or cold depending. But if all goes swimmingly, then you're going to have a really nice temperature year round, which is great. The other thing is it is very close to some factions we can trade with. So the starting factions that there are, they always have a different name each time, but the purple one and the yellow one start off as neutral to you, which means you can trade with them right off the bat. They aren't allies, so they won't come to help you if you get attacked, but they will trade with you. The Empire, if you have the Royalty DLC, starts off as neutral, but you can't trade with them unless you become allies with them or have someone who rises in the ranks and gets honor from them and gets a certain title that then allows them to trade. The other factions are hostile to begin with, and they will not trade with you, and they will attack you on sight if they see you. So that's something you want to keep in mind. So if you go over here to this little measurement tool and right-click, you can see the travel distance on average to get to that. This, I think, assumes all normal conditions. And so this would only take a half day to caravan up and travel to this colony to trade with. And over here, it would take 1.3 days. My colony is really close to a couple of roads, which is also nice, and that cuts down on travel time. When you're selecting a starting tile, you don't want to start, you can, but if you start within 4 tiles of another colony, it will let you know that. So if I tried to choose that tile, it can't be directly adjacent. It won't let you do that. But if it's not directly adjacent, then it will say, hey, if you settle on this tile, then this faction is going to get -30 to their relationship with you every 15 days. Even if they were neutral, they'll soon really despise you if they feel threatened because you're so close. So those are some things to keep in mind as you select a tile. All right, so let's hit next. And this is where the real fun begins. So in the crash landed scenario, you start with 3 colonists, and you get to pick those 3 colonists out of a selection of 8 total colonists. Now, you can always hit the randomize button. You can hit this as many times as you want, and it will generate a new colonist with new stats and new health conditions and all sorts of new stuff. But for the purposes of this game, I will not randomize anything, and I will not edit anything. I have the mod Prepare Carefully, which allows you to really go in and, mess with any sort of skills, add health, add bionics to them. You can really change it up, and you can really have a lot of power on what your colonists, at least the starting colonists, look like and act like. And if that's the game you want to play, that's totally fine. I played a game where I made everyone really, really good at animals, and they all tamed a whole bunch of elephants, and we went on a whole bunch of raids with our war elephants. It was a lot of fun. But for the purpose of this video, I'm not going to hit randomize. I'm only going to choose between these 8. So I'm going to look through these colonists, and then I'll pick the 3, and then I'll come back and let you know why I picked those 3 and what I look for when I'm selecting my colonists. Okay, so I've selected my 3 colonists. They are Maxie, Guillermo, and Inessa. Maxie's a child star, Guillermo's a medieval doctor, and Inessa's a policewoman. So the reason I chose these is for a lot of reasons. So when you're looking at a colonists, you want to first look at their skills. So their skills are exactly what they are. These are the main things that they can do in their colony and how good they are at doing them. The highest a skill can be is 20. The lowest is 0. The better they are at a skill, the faster they'll do that thing, and the more success they'll have at doing it. So if they have a 0 in construction, that means when I tell this guy to build a wall, he'll do it very, very slowly, and there's a high chance that he will botch the construction and will lose some materials, and he'll have to start over again. The other thing about skills is you'll notice these flames on the side. That is showing the colonist's passion. So no flame means that they do not have a passion for that skill, and they learn at 35% efficiency. So it'll be very hard for them to build up that skill, even if they do it all the time. A small flame means they have a minor passion, and they will learn at 100% efficiency. So they can build up that skill relatively quickly if they have a small passion in it. And then a double flame means that they have a burning passion for it, and they'll learn at 150% efficiency. So they will really learn that quickly, and they love doing it. If a pawn works on something they have a passion for or a burning passion for, they get a mood bonus while they're doing that work, which is great. So when I'm looking at a pawn, the first thing I look at is not only their starting skill level in each of the skills, but their spread of passions. You want as many passions as you want, so that you have as many skills that you could eventually work up as you can. The other thing that I look at is what the pawn is incapable of, because it's just as important what a pawn can do as what they can't do. So you'll notice that Maxi, for example, won't do dumb labor, which is hauling and cleaning, which are important things to be able to do. So if no one was able to clean or haul things, it would take quite a while to get things done. Luckily, we can train animals to haul things, and when our colony gets big enough, we'll probably have a dedicated cleaner anyway. The other thing you look at is the traits. Now, traits really determine a lot of things about a colonist. It will determine sometimes a passive ability that they have, or it'll kind of determine how well they get along with others. So you can see here, Guillermo, he's staggeringly ugly. So people really don't want to be around him. They find it hard to stay, to be happy around him because he is really ugly. He is also a misogynist, so he really dislikes and distrusts women, which is going to be interesting because my other 2 starting colonists are women. As you go through this, there is no real science or perfect science for who you choose, and there's a lot of give and take. So this colonist will, probably butt heads a lot with my other 2. So that'll be interesting to see. Maxi here you might notice that they don't have much skills, and they only have 2 minor passions. But the big thing about Maxi is that Maxi has 2 of my favorite traits, and they are also paired together, which makes them even more powerful. Iron-willed means that it takes a lot more to make this person unhappy enough to go on what's called a mental break. During this whole game, you're going to be trying to, monitor and keep the moods of all your colonists high. Because if they get too low, they'll do what's called a mental break. And that can be as innocuous as going on just a sad wander, or it could mean they go on a murderous rage. There's a lot of different types of mental breaks, and really what it means is that you can't control your colonist for a period of time. So iron-willed makes it so that they have to be really unhappy in order for them to even start to go on mental breaks or have a chance to go on a mental break. And then sanguine gives a permanent mood bonus of +12, which means she is always just generally really happy. So not only is she happy, it's also harder to make her unhappy. So these are amazing traits, and they're even more amazing when they're paired together. So this is great. I've never seen a colonist start off with both of these traits. So that's the kind of give and take. This this colonist isn't really good at much, but they will not break. So when everything all else fails, I'll be able to count on this colonist to keep her head and be able to still be controlled by me. And Anessa here also has some rather unfortunate traits. She is creepy breathing, which again makes it people don't really like her very much. She's trigger happy, which means she fires really quickly, but less accurately. When your shooting gets up high enough, this is actually a fairly good thing because they're so accurate anyway that they're just now firing faster. But it will mean that she'll be missing a lot. Also, she is a quick sleeper, which is a great trait. It means she's spending less time sleeping and more time working and providing and being productive for the colony. The other thing I always look at is health. This is something that can easily go overlooked, but people can have health effects that will really be a detriment or a positive to them being able to be productive. So it could be something as having a scar or an old injury that causes them pain. It could mean they could start off with an addiction of some sort, and when they go through with, if they don't get that substance they're addicted to, they'll be very, very unhappy. So always pay attention to the health conditions. Luckily, no one here had any health conditions that I saw, so that wasn't really a factor with these, which is very rare. And then there also are relations, like Anessa here is married to Tommy here. This sometimes happens where your starting colonists might be related. So if you started with both of these colonists, they would be fairly happy because they like being able to, sleep in the same bed as their spouse and stuff like that. But I was not going to recruit Tommy because he can't do a lot of stuff. He's a pyromaniac, which means when he breaks, he likes to set fires, which is no, thank you. So yeah, these are my starting colonists. And, it's going to be interesting to see how they get on. Something to keep in mind for early game, the skills that you really want to pay attention to are construction. You need a construction of 4 to be able to build the most basic electronic equipment, so power generators and things of that nature, like a air conditioner or things like that. Unfortunately, no one on this list had a construction above 3, and very few had a passion for it. So none of my guys have a passion for it, and only Anessa has a construction of 3. So we'll have to make sure she's constructing a lot in order to get that up to a 4, because we really need that 4 as quickly as possible. Yeah, that was just the roll of the dice. Unfortunately, we didn't get good construction. The other thing we want is a good cook. So, and you also want to make sure you identify who's going to be your cook from the onset, because a cook will probably be doing cooking the majority of the day and not much else, especially as the game progresses. And so I have here, Maxie at least has a minor passion for it. She doesn't have a great skill in it. You want a skill of at least 8 in order to not have a chance of causing food poisoning when you cook the food. So unfortunately, she's not starting off that great, but she has a minor passion for it, so hopefully we can build that up fairly quickly and she'll be a good cook. So I don't really need her to be good at other skills because she's going to be our primary cook. And another early game one that I think is really helpful to have a good skill in is plants. Again, none of our colonists that we've chosen is very good at plants, and none of them have a passion for it. So that is unfortunate. You also want to think about medical. We luckily do have a good medical. This is, if any injuries occur, how quickly and how effectively they get patched up. And social is something to keep in mind, because social makes it easier to get more people to join your colony. So Maxie has a good social, and Inessa has a passion for social. So that's pretty good. You also want to make sure at least one of your colonists is fairly good at being able to defend the colony. It's better if, more people can, but at least all of these are capable of violence. Sometimes you will get a pawn that is incapable of violence, like this one, and they can't shoot or participate in defending the colony from a threat. Yeah, so these are our starting colonists. So we're going to hit start. And this is where you get to see your starting location. So we're going to take a second to scope out the map once we land, and then I'll end the video there, and we'll start off with what to do on your first day in the next video. Here's your scenario that you chose, gives you a little flavor text. And then here, the colonists are coming in. And we also get to see what pet we start with. Okay, so in this scenario, you start with one random pet. We have a horse. Horses are pretty good because for a lot of reasons. One, you can train them to haul, or in all techniques, you can train them in because they can do advanced trainability. Also, they are a pack animal. So when we're caravanning up, they can hold a lot of equipment for us, which is very, very, very useful. And if ever you want to learn more about something, you can always hit this eye and it'll bring up a whole bunch of information about that person or that animal or whatever. So let's take a look just real quick and see where we landed. Okay. All right, so I like this map so far because we have a lot of mineral deposits. I have a colorblind mineral mod going on, so all those colors around the rocks are different minerals that you can get. Steel and compacted machinery and uranium. We'll talk more about those in other videos. It looks like here is our ancient danger. I'll talk about that in another video, but that's a good place for loot and to get some much needed resources. Yeah, so when I first look at a map, I also look at the fertility of the map. So if you go down here, you can toggle the fertility overlay, and this will show you where your deposits of rich soil are. In these dark green areas are where rich soil are, and that's where plants will grow much faster than normal soil. So here, if you look in the bottom left, it says rich soil. It has a fertility of 140%. The light green is just normal soil, so that's perfectly fine to grow on. You just won't get a bonus. And then the yellow is less fertile soil, and then where there is no color, that means you can't grow there. So we actually have a fairly good patch of green right here. So we will maybe want to start our colony close to this so we can plant around here. Yeah, so that looks good. We might settle fairly close to where we just landed. This is also a good central location because I can easily see us being able to kind of put walls up and encapsulate this inner area and defend it fairly easily by just putting a few walls up in these segments. And then we'll have a nice big area that we can defend fairly easily from attack. All right, so thank you for joining me on this introduction to RimWorld. I hope it was helpful and informative for you. And join me for the next video where we look at what the priorities are for the first day and how do you get your colony up and running. All right, until then, have a good one.